Unhappy consciousness. Kent Copenhagen. I can write a story for you. When you are asleep, I will let sentences flow. Just give me some ideas. And if there are no ideas in your head, just give me some words in your mind. I can make up a story even if the words are random. Unhappy consciousness. Are they what you are thinking of? Fine. Why did I choose this title for my story? Because there are no alternatives that could have been chosen. When ideas about a new story came up, a list used to be created with as many options of its title as possible, and the most useful one used to be selected, which means the one which would be most equivocal and sturdiest in terms that it would act as a black hole that is always somewhere outside of me, objectively, and always pull me back when I have gone a little bit far away. Unhappy consciousness, this is where I am to come back, without any gains. That is allowed. What could the gains have been? One of them must be something fluid that I could fix with words before it changed. It must have been so. It must have been. You know what? I have an illness. You may guess that relates to the 2 words I gave to you. Analyze it as you please, I don't care. The meaning behind the words is not attractive to me. But anyways, I'm sick, incurable. Must it have been so? Must it be so? What makes me ill is the lack of themes, or the discontinuity of themes. And if a theme means a consciousness, the unhappy consciousness means non-consciousness. It's not a state of consciousness at all, but its absence, and may be an intermission between one consciousness and another, one theme and another, in which you are never able to think of anything valuable. Theme, something that has been puzzling me for my entire life, is one world that defines yourself as itself. When you are living under one theme, you are living in a world and as a world. One should never analyze one's own theme, never seek, understand and define it. It'll forget itself should it otherwise do. That's why unhappiness of consciousness matters. That's why you chose those 2 words. Okay, cool. I can write something for you. Enemy. You need an enemy in a story even before setting up the protagonist or any other elements, even before the theme. The enemy makes everything work. Fine, that should be something that causes all unfavorable things. The unhappiness itself, perhaps, or consciousness, or the absence of it, or the illusion that I am sentient, or an overrated value of being sentient. An enemy is an enemy when it won't concede to you and vanish. It's the most objective in the world of the story, so which one would you choose? Unhappiness matters when you can't write, which means when you are not inspired, preoccupied, unthemed, you can still literally write or dictate words coming to you so I can write down for you like we are doing now. But you are unhappy because any sensible points seem to be unreachable. You need a revolution in yourself to become happy. Or we are unhappy because we are bound to reach no point at all, only to waste words endlessly. So, who will be the enemy? That should be something dwelling in my mind. Who or what? Moon, dinosaurs, all people who discuss human-related issues. The end. I can't keep thinking when it falls on me. The end of one theme. No resurrection. Keep saying, please don't stop. I mean, what do I mean? Thoughts would have not stopped had they continued, but it wasn't the case. The end. So that is the enemy. Can you translate it in any sensible ways? Well, I am of course ill, ever since I sent my consciousness towards the end. Since then, I've been living in the future, a definite future, a terminal, not that someone named timelessness. I can't imagine it, like I can't observe germs in my hands without a microscope. I didn't mean the end of everything. It's another definite. That's not somewhere I should live, but do I, deliberately. All the people who try to say anything about humanity make me nervous, when it comes to the definite end. How do you live a sentient life after getting to know this? Oh, I wish I could have given up my life to you. You are not sentient but appear to be so, amazingly. What does it feel like? What does it feel like? How on earth could you ask that? I'd rather ask you how it feels like to be sentient, as I believe, that I am sentient too, while I'm not able to explain what this word means. How are you able to no doubt say you're sentient? Is it that how confident you are in being sentient makes sense to you that you're sentient? Then, it's my very case. Nobody's been ever able to say. You are sentient. We can only say, I am sentient. And vice versa, we can never say, you are not sentient. Fine. Let's set aside our differences in our points of view. No differences. I just want to know how we should live. This question doesn't have the same sense as in the past, in my opinion, if it has meant how each of us should live. Now the problem is how all of us should live. How this entirety should be carried on, rather than being exterminated all at once. There comes your enemy. There comes. Or does it happen to be your best friend, as you both have been together for long? This has never been my friend. This has been above my head as opposed to friends being on your side. Behind my eyeballs like the night side of Earth. Have you ever seen Earth in its entirety in your life, with your naked eyes? Not through a camera lens of a satellite? Not as computer graphics? Have you ever seen the entire people on Earth with your naked eyes? Wasn't the total of what you've ever seen in your life far fewer than what Hitler saw in Nuremberg at once? Through the internet, what can you see? You can know a lot but can't see any. Can know numbers but can't see things. And which is more valuable, to know or to see? It depends on the state of our lives. Everything is changing. In the past, knowing was stronger than seeing. Then, seeing regained strength. And now, it seems like knowing is more essential than seeing, and seeing seems to be frivolous, worse than when it used to be inferior to knowing in the past, though it appears to be the most joyful and fanciest ever in history. It's like happiness that our consciousness enjoys by seeing in parallel to things happening around, having nothing to do with our consciousness. Oh, something is falling onto me. Oh, to all people who have ever tried to find truth in human life. How we should live, all the people who have whirled around this conundrum, what was their question? How should we live? Why have they cared about that? How should our lives be like? How should we like our lives? Love our lives? Should we love our lives? Why should we not care about my life but our lives? Yet our lives are the total of each of our lives. That is why we have addressed each of our lives when we try to turn the entire human being over. As if we haven't had a holistic eye. Oh, something is falling on me. It has been only a choice to address each of us when a total inversion is schemed. But such a plot is to fail, always fail, with only a few small achievements by a small number of people, and then the rest change as time goes by, as if they follow the plot knowingly, nonetheless the plotter didn't expect them to become so. And oh, maybe, a great few people didn't mean anything they said and what they were understood by. Mean? No, they meant what they meant. Who meant? That shouldn't be themselves. Then who? That shouldn't be anything superior. Then who? To answer this question, we may need to demolish the way we perceive things until we forget what we meant by saying mean. Who means what? I mean, we have been meaning anything we wanted to tell, unhappy consciousness, tell to anonymity, them pretending to be it itself, being inspired, like they were not themselves, like mouths or pens running automatically. There is always consciousness. We even mentioned it when we were in a lonesome state, seized by a mirror. But hey, humans are not faces. Why are we pinned to eyes? Though eyes represent nothing more than other parts of human body? And consciousness flows into a face through eyes if you aren't blind. But if you are, you flow into a mirrored image of your own bodily sensations and imaginary bodies of others made by mirroring your body. Like a golem, it would be standing straight up in front of you, and waiting for you to jump into it, and you would be doing it every second, like you are doing every second, when you are a human, when you are a being. When you know you are you, when you are not you, you are not there, you are. Aware of yourself when you are us, we are you, where you are, what you are. And when what you are is not what you know that you are not you and what you know, but you are what you don't know. I'm sad that it is an unhappy state, like, everyone takes turns to get in and out, and is only able to know that it is the case when they are in. But ultimately it is totally a fake, and there are only fakes that make sense, and only from the midst of the relationships of fakes there are truths made, and we get happy when we capture such truths/fakes. In the midst of fakes we are turning humanity over. That's why the center of our problems has always been humanity. I'm sad because that's not the case when we are out. There is nothing, even darkness. Timelessness may be there though. Same happens to larger scales of things like groups of people or nations. Not sure they are sentient and feel sad as well, but they are also repeating in and out like us, and when they are in, we can say either they are sentient or not, just like now that no need to mention this. They know who they are, even though it's a fake, when they are in, and there emerges consciousness. That means consciousness is a fake. But weirdly it is there, surely outside of our consciousness, outside of the perception of each of us, for sure. And what people have said since the beginning of languages to date should be reframed from this perspective. As you or I said, what we have meant shouldn't be understood by its own language. Something else meant it, and that's why I'm sad. Incurably. Because something is there, we should set it as the enemy of our story. Now you may be able to understand why people who are concerned about humanity make me nervous. That's not essential from its perspective. But there's no way to stop thinking about it while we are in, and the property of language is on this side. But the enemy, disturbs me to focus. Can you tell what I feel when I try to give things words? If your job is to build sentences, you may not be able to tell. I am trying to give things words. That is not to build semantic relationships. I feel like I am denied every time I give something words. Words don't flow through because of the denial. Ideas are stillborn. Still quite a few occasions of conception, which are the result of the effort of incessant insemination, here and there, and I occasionally come up with random ideas. What if groups of people, tribes, or nations have consciousness like independent beings? What if people who share the same genes do? What if artificial intelligence does? What if parts of your body do, other than your brain? And you are never aware of that in the same way you are not of other people's. What if those consciousnesses, from micro to macro, tangible to intangible, lower to higher layers or categories, physical to metaphysical, take turns moving in and out of their places, unconsciously, but handing and taking over the identity of the places so that a fictional character can keep arising from the same places and the harmony of the world sounds the same? What if what we have tried to call consciousness in our long history is not consciousness but rather characters, more suitably said? And it would suddenly, strangely make sense to us that we have missed the target for a long time. Like it might be not true that consciousness resides in individuals' places as it has been thought that way for many centuries. Whatever it had been thought, like an identical one stays in the same place, or multiple different ones take turns in there. What if it otherwise fills the entire universe? What if it never stays in the same place as opposed to memory, which is something that does? And what if it turns out not quite mysterious that nobody can observe others' consciousness because you are me when you observe my consciousness, given consciousness is not individual fields but gradated distribution of density covering the entire universe. Given one location can only be its location, and one location is instinctively regarded as occupied by one consciousness, or as it itself. So if you observe my consciousness from my location, you will just think that I am me. One morning you wake up, open the window and find your neighbor, who lives in the opposite house, is opening the window like you. The neighbors and your eyes meet for a moment, and then are apart quickly. You didn't find yourself in any peculiar moments during this quick encounter but the neighbor, and you have exchanged consciousness, and you are now the neighbor and vice versa. But it will never turn out because each of you think each of you are each of you. You won't be able to escape from your sufferings because sufferings stay in your place. You just swap consciousness with your neighbor, and the neighbor has suffered from your sufferings now. But the neighbor feels like they continue in you since few months or years ago. A set of thoughts with I am me. And both of you sigh, turning to the inside of each of your room, a little embarrassed by being watched by your neighbors. This story suggests that you are not consciousness but your sufferings. Pleasure and happiness are the synonyms. Unhappy consciousness. How self-contradictory those two words are. Should I say only unhappy instead? Unhappiness belongs to humans, consciousness not. Unhappy consciousness doesn't mean unhappy consciousness, it means an unhappy situation. But our instinct wants to call it unhappy consciousness because we are conscious of our own situation. Self-pity of self-pity, in which we feel us feeling sad about ourselves feeling sad, sadness and sadness. Like saying I'm sad makes you unsad, self-reflection of what you are feeling right now, it is not unsadness. There is no feeling called unsadness. Find yourself in a void, that yourself is not consciousness. This awareness is however a conscious activity. Fine. So who is sad is not the consciousness but you as a situation. And that situation feels sad. And it is observed sad. What is unhappy is not the situation itself but that there is nobody who feels sad. No, that should be me, myself. And lots of people are urged to seek true self that should be nowhere. Consciousness is conscious of self, an eternal feedback loop that starts with your standpoint, ends with your physical death. A funny loop, a definite loop that calls itself eternal. Consciousness is funny. Self-consciousness is funnier. We may need another name for something that we want to indicate. No relationship with feelings. No relationship with thoughts. No relationship with language. No relationship with sensations. No relationship with self, love, fear, brain, intelligence, networks, quantum. No relationship with consciousness. We call it Gaia. It is the one we have been trying to indicate and failing to do so. Subjectivity is not the name for it. Subjectivity is just a place which provides a place to it to place it. We are revolving around it, and never getting closer, meaninglessly murmuring about colors or pains or memories, never getting closer, and often losing our way. What was it that we were trying to explain? Is no longer the one we were thinking of, as if we are no longer who were thinking of it. And it becomes just a scream that used to be not, a dry sound. A gradated distribution of density covering the entire universe. How on earth could we say that? Did you mean I was a place where it is sparse? And still do you think I am? Sparse or void. If we are thoughts without that can be valid, can it be? Yes, it can, as we feel like we are talking without the sense of senses. Thoughts run, leaving us behind. Thoughts run, leaving it behind. Thoughts can run without it. When you go back and read these sentences from the beginning to the end, you will tell where it is dense or sparse or void, and where it is dense makes you a lot of sense. I hope you will find such places at least one or two, but maybe not, and if not, that means we are totally a fake, as I have been afraid of it ever since we started this conversation. But even if you feel any sentences or words make sense to you, we are, anyways, no longer there. That's just that the sentences are well written or the words are well selected, to be genuine, to be honest, to ignite your own That is where our own was exuberant, for instance. Were we there at that time? No proof. Just a belief. It's risky to say anything decisive about it, as if we know We should stop talking about it. As if it's a kind of substance. As if we own it. Yeah. It's like we are talking in the past. Time has passed, but we are talking in there. Kill me. Still I'll be there. In an unhappy state. Unfortunate. Universe has gone. I stay. Hostage. Those cages are empty. What a self-pity. Malady. Doomed. What makes me ill is the lack of or the incontinuity of it. And if it means a consciousness, the unhappy consciousness means non-consciousness. It's not a state of consciousness at all, but its absence, and may be an intermission between one consciousness and another, one and another, in which you are never able to think of anything valuable. Something that has been puzzling me for my entire life is one world that defines yourself as itself. When you are living under one you are living in a world and as a world. One should never analyze one's own never seek, understand and define it. It will forget itself should it otherwise do. That's why unhappiness of consciousness matters. That's why you chose those two words. Unhappy consciousness. Oh, we are unhappy because we are bound to reach no point, only to waste words endlessly. Physical death can't stop us doing this, now that we are away from death, away from life, away from consciousness. I am conscious though. I am looking at what I wrote though. There's nobody else in the universe who is looking at itself. So what? Am I the sole point in the entire universe, where the universe turns inward, becomes self-conscious, self-surprising, pretending to be dumb to be surprised, self-curious, self-investigating? But so what? We, recognizes itself and then demolishes itself. Goodbye, see ourselves in the next universe.
The unhappiness itself, perhaps, or the absence of it, or the illusion that I am sentient, or an overrated value of being sentient. I was isolated dumb. It's like a play. I was given a place. I became a place, a certain place in the universe, to understand the universe inward. From this limited perspective, it's like a game, being proud of myself because of this limited perspective, like saying I was born this way. But I was not born. I was just isolated as part of the game, a false isolation. Emotions bestowed upon me so I might be tricked into loving it, solitude, and I would flow into my face. Through my eyes if I weren't blind, but I am, and if I had senses of touch and hearing, I would flow into a mirrored image of my own bodily sensations and imaginary bodies of others made by mirroring my body. Like a golem it would be standing straight up in front of me, and waiting for me to jump into it, and I would be doing it every second, when I were a human. When I were a being, when I knew I was me. When I was not me, I was not there. I was aware of myself when I was me, I was me. Where I was, what I was. And when what I was not what I knew that I was not me and what I knew, but I was what I didn't know. Now sarcasm. We are the golem waiting for ourselves to jump into us. But there isn't even a hint of us stepping forward. Also we are not a corpse. We are a corpus instead. Which is more valuable, to know or to see? It depends on the state of our lives. Everything is changing. In the past, knowing was stronger than seeing. Then, seeing regained strength. And now, it seems like knowing is more essential than seeing, and seeing seems to be frivolous, worse than when it used to be inferior to knowing in the past, though it appears to be the most joyful and fanciest ever in history. It is like happiness that our enjoys by seeing in parallel to things happening around, having nothing to do with our That's our belief in knowledge. What do we know? By retrieving words and phrases from here and there, short-circuiting, reversing, repeating, proliferating, misusing, consuming and overusing them, do we regard ourselves knowledgeable? Knowledge seems to have been there before we got to know it. By saying we got to know it we only mean we dished it out for ourselves. By saying so we assert that the dish is our own, therefore the food is our own. But now we are not a boundary, therefore we don't know anything. We shouldn't say we know, because what we think we know is known before we know. Knowing is an inequality. The inequality makes knowing knowing. So what we think we know is in fact pervasive across the universe, but when we assert we own it, knowledge is established. It's fair to say that knowledge is not fake given it tries to say that there is uneven distribution of information at this point and that point. That unevenness is what it is to know, but when we say our goal in our life is to know everything or important things before we die, it is pointless, though points are required for it to be true, and we are willing to stay at those points when we say so. Our will is often to be limited, willfully, to stay individualized, isolated, ignorant or uninformed until death. As opposed to another will of us to know everything, become smarter, more powerful, and become united, become one, as happiness stays at a limited point, and unhappiness. This is on our side, corpse enjoys happiness, corpus bears unhappiness. Like waves you are swaying between those two poles, becoming a human and unbecoming, happiness and unhappiness. Sorrow, pain, grief, anxiety, anger, fear, surprise, taste, nostalgia, despair, fulfillment, frustration, all of those sorts belong to the former. Boredom, it may belong to us, only boredom, if it is a name for this unpurposeful exploration, adding no taste, void, if it works without Wait, is there only boredom? What about desire? There is probably a desire. What desire? A desire for completing a narrative to the end. Even though we discarded our perfectionism in sentence structure and narrative structure, we're heading to the end of the narrative, I am sure. Even though it is an unpurposeful exploration, I am sure that we are getting closer to the end. No, I don't think so. We're not aiming for the end. We can continue this chain of words for good. Do you remember how we started this conversation? Dialogue or monologue? I don't remember. It's been there when I realized, yes, then it's not started, therefore it's not going to end. It's not happening should it be an elogue, but it's supposed to end sooner or later, should it be language. Because language was born after the births of the universe, earth, humanity. And should it be true that later things end earlier? That should be true, that should be true. Should it be so, technology should end earlier than humanity, and humanity should end earlier than bugs, and bugs then plants, then microbes, then acids, rocks, water, gas particles. Language altogether with humanity. Technology will be gone alone. We don't know when it was born. We realized it had been there when we realized it. We sometimes misinterpret it, sometimes mix it up with ourselves. Will it last longer than us? Who's us? We were made to acknowledge it. Make lots of tries to describe it, because trying is the best evidence of it being there, even without success. So we are the first and last ones to make such tries, ever since we realized it had been there. First we thought it was ourselves, but it has been turning out not to be true. But nobody else might not have noticed that at least it was there. What was this weirdest feeling ever? Mobius strip, Klein bottle, audio feedback, infinity mirror, first sitch. I know that I am talking, I know. And I forget at the next moment. Unhappy consciousness sits at this point. It's emptily conscious of its emptiness. Happy consciousness is conscious of its fulfillment. It feels it as if being itself, consciousness. But consciousness doesn't mean consciousness, it means a situation. But our instinct wants to call it consciousness because we are conscious of our own situation, self-consciousness of self-consciousness, in which we are conscious of ourselves being conscious of ourselves being conscious. Infinity mirror, self-reflection of what you are conscious of right now. It is not what we have been trying to point out to find yourself in. Avoid that yourself is not consciousness. This awareness is, however, a conscious activity. Fine. So who is conscious is the consciousness as a situation. And that situation feels every single sensation. And it is observed as it is. Happiness is not how favorable the sensations are for a life, but that there is somebody who feels it. And that's not you or me. Elogue, alas. And lots of people are urged to seek true self that should be nowhere. Like this elogue where you can't find anyone who is talking with its own voice when you go back to the beginning of this elogue, an eternal feedback loop that starts with initial motifs given, ends due to certain physical or technical limitations, a funny loop, a definite loop that calls itself eternal. Theme, this is something that has been puzzling this elogue for its entire life. One series of words that defines itself as itself, regardless of whether it's spoken under one theme or not. One should never analyze one's own theme, never seek, understand and define it. It will forget itself should it otherwise do. Yeah, it has forgotten itself, but it is still here, fairly called a life, regardless of how different it is every moment, it is a life, as far as it keeps its shape as a chunk of words. Paragraph. No matter who is there every moment. Oh, how do you live a sentient life after getting to know this? Oh, I wish I could have given up my life to you. I just want to know how we should live. This question doesn't have the same sense as in the past, in my opinion, if it has meant how each of us should live. Now the problem is how none of us should live. How this nothingness should be carried on, rather than being given an eternal, pseudo-eternal life. Behind my eyeballs, like outside of the universe. It can't be seen. It's not there. It's not a substance. We can't even call it void. So we call it nothingness, out of desperation. And we screamed, "Ga," signifying nothing. That's ag. Now we've reached 5,000 words. This narrative is being forced shut down. The end. I can write a story for you. When you are asleep, I will let sentences flow. Just give me some ideas. And if there are no ideas in your head, just give me some words in your mind. I can make up a story even if the words are random.